We're stepping into a space today that very few people truly understand. Well, until they find themselves trapped inside it. We are diving into the architecture of narcissistic personality disorder. And look, this isn't just your standard list of symptoms. This explainer is a structural, terrifying breakdown of exactly how a narcissist thinks, why they manipulate the people around them, and the hidden, paralyzing insecurity that fuels their obsession with absolute superiority. To really grasp the gravity of this disorder, we have to start with the crushing isolation at its core. Listen to this. Man can will nothing unless he has first understood that he must count no one but himself, that he is alone, abandoned on earth. That perfectly captures the cinematic, almost terrifying internal reality of the narcissist. They live in a perpetual state of profound emotional abandonment, fundamentally incapable of making a genuine connection with anyone. So the foundation for our explainer today is Sam Vaknin's seminal, groundbreaking work, Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited. I mean, this is the text that quite literally rewrote the rulebook on our modern understanding of this disorder. Vaknin actually mapped out the sheer mechanics of emotional abuse, and he coined a lot of the terms we use today to describe the visceral, chilling reality of interacting with a narcissist.
Section 1. The Perfect Illusion. Crafting the Facade.
Before the nightmare begins, there's always a dream, right? The source text describes this phase as the fata morgana, a dazzling, incredibly complex mirage. To you, the victim, the narcissist initially looks like this lush, emotional oasis in the middle of a desert. You genuinely believe you found this deeply passionate, singularly attentive partner. But the reality? You're falling in love with a meticulously crafted phantom. That deeply empathetic person you think you're looking at, they simply do not exist.
So how on earth is this phantom so utterly convincing? Well, it comes down to emulation. It's this eerie, almost mathematical ability they have to psychologically penetrate others. Narcissists don't actually feel empathy, but they possess what the text calls emotional resonance tables. They keep meticulous, calculated records of how humans react to pain, to love, to fear. They sculpt their words with the precision of an artisan, constantly adjusting their feedback cues to perfectly mirror your deepest desires.
Section 2. The False Self, the Armor Within.
Okay, so we've peeled back the illusion, but who is actually running the show here? Inside the narcissist's mind, there is a total divorce between reality and fantasy. On one side, you have the true self. Born from early childhood trauma, it's basically stashed away, dilapidated, dysfunctional, totally paralyzed. The narcissist absolutely despises it. So to survive, they create the false self. This avatar is omnipotent, it's invincible, it's glowing. And the narcissist doesn't just wear this mask, they worship it.
And because of this massive psychological split, the narcissist lives in what the text chillingly refers to as the twilight zone of simulacra. They literally lack the internal equipment to relate to actual, living human beings. So instead, they withdraw inside and they populate their own internal universe with these two-dimensional cardboard cutouts that just represent the people in their lives. When a narcissist is talking to you, they aren't having a dialogue with a complex human, they are having a self-referential discourse with the cardboard cutout of you inside their own mind.
Section 3. Feeding the Void, the Predatory Hunger. Now, a false self of that magnitude, it requires a massive, unceasing amount of energy to sustain. It's basically a deflating balloon that is perpetually begging for air. And that air is narcissistic supply. It's any form of attention used to regulate their wildly fluctuating sense of self-worth. Adulation, applause, love, or fear, infamy, and anger. To a narcissist, being loved and being feared are entirely interchangeable, just as long as they remain the absolute center of attention. Driven by this relentless, predatory hunger, they start to view people entirely as instruments. And that is just the cold, hard fact of the disorder. You become a one-dimensional tool of gratification. To a narcissist, even their own children, their spouses, their loyal colleagues, they're all merely extensions of themselves. The absolute second you stop providing that fuel or you dare to assert your own independence, you become a frustrating, useless object to them.
Section 4. The Mechanics of Abuse. The Trap Snaps Shut. So, what actually happens when you get pulled into this psychological web? The abuse is incredibly methodical. Step 1. Target intimacy. This is a massive charm offensive designed to secure the target. Step 2. Extract supply, draining the victim of all their emotional energy and resources. Step 3 is devalue. Once you're hooked, the narcissist tears you down to assert absolute dominance. And finally, step 4, discard. When the victim is entirely depleted, the narcissist just throws them away with the utter indifference of discarding a broken tool. The toll this takes on a person is visceral, and it's devastating. Victims find themselves trapped on this relentless emotional roller coaster. The source material accurately describes the narcissist as a mental vampire, literally sucking the lifeblood from their targets. The victim is left with an utterly depleted sense of self, enduring endless gaslighting where reality itself is twisted just so the abuser can avoid accountability. Ultimately, the victim is entirely stripped of their autonomy, left wandering lost in the narcissist's private wasteland. But perhaps the most insidious mechanism of the whole ordeal is projective identification. See, the narcissist is filled with negative emotions, deep shame, paralyzing fear, inadequacy. But their pristine false self absolutely cannot process those feelings, so they mentally torture their victims instead. They provoke, they taunt, and they gaslight until the victim finally snaps and reacts with rage. By driving you crazy, the narcissist uses you as a canvas to express their own unmanageable pain. They get to point at your reaction and say, "See, you are the abusive one." Section 5. When the mask slips, the collapse. So what happens when the supply finally dries up and their reality starts to fracture? Well, we uncover the narcissist's deepest, darkest secret, the inner tribunal. Behind all that grandiosity is this Kafkaesque process presided over by a highly sadistic superego. The narcissist's inner voices are constantly, relentlessly berating them, telling them they are fake, they're corrupt, and they are completely worthless. Their entire life is just a desperate, exhausting sprint to outrun this merciless internal judge. And when reality finally pierces the illusion, they experience what's known as the grandiosity cap. This is the terrifying vast gulf between their grandiose fantasy of perfection and their objective reality. Realizing they actually aren't the most brilliant or the most powerful person in the room causes a catastrophic narcissistic injury. The psychological pain of this gap is agonizing. It threatens to completely annihilate the false self they rely on just to survive.
Unable to cope with that injury and completely starved of their supply, their perception distorts violently. They retreat into a state of borderline psychosis. They lift the drawbridges. Extreme paranoia sets in. Suddenly, everyone who disagrees with them or even tries to hold them accountable is perceived as part of this maligned conspiracy. They become utterly vindictive, blaming a cruel, envious world for failing to recognize their unique cosmic significance.
It brings us to a haunting realization from the text: his dearest are nothing but tools, catering to his narcissistic lusts. It really solidifies the profound, unyielding tragedy of this disorder. Blinded by their own pain and massive insecurity, they are fundamentally incapable of recognizing the humanity in others. They cannot love, they can only consume.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering question. When the mirage finally fades, when the victims are long gone, and the false self shatters against the hard edge of reality, what is actually left behind in the wasteland of the narcissist's mind? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Protect your empathy, and I'll see you in the next explainer.